Welcome back, everyone. The finals has already concluded. If I'm not missing something about the tiebreaker game, this should be the deciding game of the season. We can check the standings out after the game. And as requested, I have not yet seen the results, so I'm going in blindly into this game. We are on the same page here. And I actually have I have some information about the game until turn 6 because I already started recording, and then I realized that my microphone was standing somewhere randomly not in front of me, and it didn't really work out. So here I am again, so I know what happened until turn 6, but after that I'm really blind. And this is just the early game after all. We see, yeah, let's just start with the analysis here. We see Saru going for Hammurabi here, and I think this is more or less the blind pick that every player would do. Hammurabi is more or less in a class of its own. I would say he's top S tier, best leader, HA leader in the game, and then maybe you can still put Confucius also in S tier, but he's just better. He's just the best leader. There is an argument to be made that Sun Tzu his merits in some game states, and we can look at this together. Now I'm a bit afraid that the recording, I think it's working out. Okay. Yeah, there's a Suez Canal, which is a big plus for Sun Tzu because he just draws some colonies in. But there's no Eleanor and or some strength related leaders like Barbarossa or Shishka, which also makes Sun Tzu stronger. Yeah, I think some players value him very highly in certain game states. I would agree that I would definitely also go for Hammurabi here. And now is the question maybe if pv4 views Sun Tzu good enough to take him here, or he rather relies on Boudica, who probably in a vacuum has more consistent value and actually a pretty good value. So Boudica is also one of the better leaders, definitely. And I would probably go for her. And he indeed does go for Boudica and the Richland. The good old age-old question, Urban Grove A or Richland A. And I agree. I'm in the Richland A kind of group. And yeah, actually, I think I had one game in this season where I did take the Urban Growth. I think sometimes you take the Urban Growth. And it's hard to explain why, but in most cases, I think I prefer the Richland. In that game, I had access to Acropolis for certain, and then I thought maybe that extra. Yeah, I don't know even if that argument makes any sense, honestly. But yeah, pv4 is a very reasonable man and takes Richland. Now it's an interesting question. Saru elects Hammurabi. Now it's an interesting question. Does Saru pay 2 civil elections for the Acropolis here? And we can take a peek here again. It's not screaming for the Acropolis to be very strong here. My standard argument is Bach and Dietrich, which make the Acropolis even stronger than it is in a vacuum. I can imagine that it's still reasonable to take it, but you can also just take that engineering genius, which then means you have no access to that Acropolis anymore. But the EGA could be used for this Roman roads actually very nicely. He would have the turn of taking the Roman roads and just finishing it at once with the EG, or you just wait for an H1 wonder. There's the Universitas and Silk Road, and if they drop early, then it's kind of nice to have script an HA wonder. If they don't drop early, then sometimes it's a bit awkward to have no wonder available. Let's see. He indeed does go for the engineering genius. Now pv4 elects Boudica, builds the mine, and here also an interesting decision. Does he take Acropolis and populates? Or how does the turn look? That would be my first intuition. But yeah, here I was already a little spoiled. As I said, I know what happened until turn 6. He went for this Roman roads for 2 civil actions. And this is actually very understandable because he denies Saru this very efficient early start of just taking and finishing this Roman roads now. And that's why he's willing to pay an extra civil action and skips the population. Is actually, if he can use the Boudica Rock, also able to just finish it next turn, if he wants, if he chooses to. Saru builds the second lab, populates, and yeah, maybe it's an interesting question now. Does he skip the HA Wonder? Or does he really take this Hanging Gardens? There is maybe some wombo combo here with Michelangelo and the Basilica. I personally do think that it's a viable plan. You just shouldn't go, if you do that, shouldn't go all in building religions just for the culture income. Just build your economy up normally and produce 10 culture per turn on the side. Have some extra, save some extra civil actions for even another wonder, maybe into H2, if you're lucky they are early, or maybe even take some of those other wonders. And then have a very good situation going into late game. I think it can be viable. So he does go for the Hanging Gardens and starts building it. Takes this frugality, which means that this alchemy is definitely on 1 civil action here. pv4 does go for this turn where he just builds Roman roads. Doesn't bother with taking the alchemy here. Yeah, it kind of depends in my book. I feel like the more natural turn is actually populating, building the philosophy, or populate, take alchemy, build 2 stages, maybe something like that. So I have the alchemy available. It's not the best printing press game, and missing out on alchemy can be a little annoying. Like this, he's better set up to just take the Universitas or Silk Road maybe. And it also depends a bit if good cards available for 2 civil actions on the next turn, because otherwise he might have an awkward last civil action at least. So populates, builds philosophy, and then you can populate again and maybe take a yellow here. I think he would prefer for some good card to be here. We have not seen an event being seeded yet. Saru can't probably seed or has drawn events that he didn't want to seed. Gets this Engineering Genius 1 for 1 civil action here. The Alchemy for 1 civil action. Takes Urban Growth. Develops the Alchemy and upgrades 1 Alchemy. And yeah, here we kind of see the power of Hammurabi. He made the turn so much better. Yeah, this civil action for the cost of a military action just meant an extra urban growth, for example. It's makes the game so much better, so much easier to play, having this extra civil action early on. Some historical trivia. In the first version of the game, he worked differently. He had actually +1 civil action and -1 military action, which meant you could only hold 1 military card. And in that old game, it was even more unplayable than here because you couldn't use cards to defend at all. Yeah, maybe actually that would be appropriate in this game. It's a nerf. It's a nerf, by the way. Yeah. So he was buffed to this option, and yeah, back then he was deemed completely unplayable and no one ever played him, and now he's just beyond good. Yeah, we do see pv4 getting access to the Code of Laws for 2 civil actions, which is super nice for him. And then he will probably just build this philosophy. And here, Saru, yeah, will be interesting. Does he finish this wonder? He could still finish it, would miss out on one rock with the EG, could finish the Wonder and take the St. Pete's, which is maybe happiness overkill, but yeah, creates this option of generating quite a few culture with Michelangelo per turn. But he doesn't go for it. He goes for the Monarchy for 2, which is very understandable. He will get the Iron available for 1 selection in any case. Still gets the Cultural Heritage. And he has such a good science situation. And with the Cultural Heritage, he can just develop this Monarchy without having to rely on a revolution. And builds 1 stage of the Hanging Gardens as his last selection. pv4 takes the Iron, develops it, upgrades it, prefers it before the Code of Laws. Didn't take a Wonder. I think it would also be a reasonable maybe decision to just go for the Code of Laws and take a Wonder here, the St. Pete's maybe. Now it will be interesting to see if he gets access to the Silk Road. It will be left on this spot, which means Saru would have to pay quite a lot of selections for it. And I mean, maybe it's not his plan anyway to go for that Silk Road, but it's the last H1 Wonder then in the deck. And he kind of needs maybe something to invest his rocks in. The Silk Road's not the dream Wonder for that scenario. It takes a lot of civil action and reduced rock cost, so it's not the classical rock dump like a Himeji Castle or something. Saru. So this is now new to me. Until here I was talking into a void, more or less. I was actually audible, but very weirdly with a very distant hall effect, so I just redid it. From now on, I'm as blind as you are. Saru goes for this Cultural Heritage. It will be interesting. He probably wants to take Iron. I can't imagine him taking the Silk Road. We'll probably just make a normal turn here. Finish the Wonder, go for Monarchy. If he even finishes the Wonder, goes for Monarchy, take Iron Breakthrough. And what, has to populate still. Takes Patriotism, has to populate still, yeah. Doesn't even finish the Wonder, doesn't bother. No one bothered with the leader yet. Columbus passed through, so maybe no one had a colony and was also not willing to gamble on one. Or it just had better things to do. And now it's interesting. Maybe pv4 could think about Gutenberg, although both alchemies are gone. But that late into H2, if an early scientific method or journalism drops, Gutenberg starts working a lot. And Nostradamus is maybe the safer value here. Just 3 culture per turn for seeding, and no one has still seeded yet an event. This is very unusual. Would be nice to see if they didn't want to or just chose not to seed what they have drawn. The other leader options are Michelangelo and Da Vinci. Saru might be looking out for Da Vinci. I think it's pretty good for him. But yeah, Michelangelo is also an option, just to take some H2 Wonders then cheaper. Yeah, I'm curious, what does pv4 do here actually? Just upgrade another mine. And now? Nostradamus? And still has to popular will elect the leader, might lose the civil actions otherwise. Civil action for replacing it. And has to either build a warrior and take a card here, but I can't imagine him taking a card here, so he will just populate. Yeah. Place the Legion tactic. Efficient use of H1 military actions. So yeah, pv4 has a lot of rocks, and he will need something to drop in H2 early on. Something like a journalism would elevate his position it would skyrocket him. If he gets access to early journalism, it would skyrocket his position. If he doesn't, I think Saru's in the better position here because he has the monarchy down. And I mean, yeah, okay. pv4 also will develop this code of laws, so he will also be at 5 civil actions. But he has 5 civil actions, 3 MA, and crucially, he has this very good science situation, which makes him very flexible for H2. I think, and yeah, just looking at the sand, a lot of value still here. So I would guess Saru goes a bit better out of H1 here. And it is a little what I felt in my game against Saru with the Roman roads. I think it's a similar problem for pv4, is that it costs so many civil actions. And then it looked actually more or less very, very similar. Only that I had the printing press and no code of laws in hand in my game. And still, you feel that this costs 4 civil actions. And yeah, does he get to wonder where he can dump his rocks? Does he get journalisms? Or maybe scientific method, also super good, obviously, where he can dump his rocks and fix his science situation. Does he get access to an H2 government? Or will history repeat and Saru just block both? Although it's maybe a bit more important since he is not going to play one of those, most likely. So blocking both governments might be very costly. Yeah, super curious how this will play out. We see the first event being seeded, and it is the development of religion. Both players can take that. He finishes the hanging gardens actually with the engineering genius, so he doesn't mind losing out on that one rock. And populates, upgrades 2 mines, takes the knights, takes frugality. Plays heavy cavalry. Oh, this can be a decent option. He does have the happy faces. He does have food. He will lose this frugality, but I think he can live with that. He still has this frugality, so that means 4 plus 2 he can't populate twice unless I'm missing something, but still once, and then at some point. I'm not certain. There's also still a lot of developments here. If he gets 2 people out and he has also his patriotism, it's not impossible that he goes for this heavy cavalry pretty soon, actually, and this can create a lot of stress for pv4. Did they actually fix this bug? Maybe. I've not run into it for a while now. Development of agriculture, actually, maybe that is also already the development, which enables Saru to populate twice. Then we see the free religion being taken. pv4 has to populate to get out of corruption. Goes for this code of law. Values that breakthrough very highly because he does have not science. Populates again. Does not bother with the knights. But yeah, understandably so. Doesn't have science for that anyway. Doesn't have MA to just copy this tactic. Hopes for the H2 solutions. But yeah, somehow this feels like after this also, I would say even more so that Saru's position is preferable. Yeah, it depends. It depends on the cards that drop here for pv4. Can he find a good dump for his rocks? Okay, here is very interesting. There is the strategy drop. And do we see it being taken for 3 here? We first of all see Michelangelo being taken. And yeah, he doesn't take strategy for 3. Deems it not important enough. Which is... I mean, yeah, he did a very clean turn. And pv4 does not have just the signs laying around to go for the strategy, so understandable. But I think taking it creates some game states where if he also misses out on Conmon, where he just can't keep up with the savvy cav even. So I think it would have been an option to spend those 3 civil actions. Just take maybe this guy in hand, populate to get out of corruption. Could be an option. Because he also has the signs just to go for the strategy. I would be very surprised if pv4 doesn't go for it. On the other hand, he also still has maybe to consider going for irrigation. Yeah, but I can't imagine that he doesn't go for the strategy for 3 civil actions. Maybe unless there's a government drop here now. So, first of all, pv4 seats. There's a development of settlement. It's also maybe unusual to see it getting one of these guys out and into h2. Goes for irrigation, goes for strategy. Deems both important. And finds a way to even fix corruption here. Possibly, if he builds another warrior, yes. He even takes this printing press. Yeah, which is maybe a bit interesting. It is good with Gaudi, maybe, which is an option. But it's not the rock dump that he needs. Yeah, but if journalism and scientific method are far in the back, then he has no way to improve his science position income. So maybe going for this printing press next turn is an option. Yeah, maybe just didn't have a decent last civil action. Did build this iron in order to avoid corruption. But couldn't he also just build an irrigation this turn? I don't know if I'm such a huge fan of this late printing press in a game where it doesn't even enable a Shakespeare. Curious if that can work out. Saru seeds, opens the development of science, which is definitely better for pv4 here, the 2 signs. He goes for his knights with the patriotism, just builds it. Yeah, has this heavy cavalry down. I mean, pv4 now does have this strategy available. It would be all his rocks, but he also has all his signs. But he also has a breakthrough. And he also has Nostradamus. So, yeah, he will not die to this, unless maybe he has wars, because the Nostradamus bonus doesn't help with wars. Some annoying war over territories now. Could be pretty deadly. Maybe he still goes for this navigation, with also some extra strength. Yeah, and maybe it also forces him to spend those 8 signs now. It's not really what he wants to do, but maybe he has to do. Maybe he also gambles and says, if you have aggressions, then go ahead. Can survive 1 or 2, but I would say the standard approach would probably is to go for strategy here. Yeah, this does create a lot of pressure. Still goes for masonry. It's always a great card. Some wonders coming down here. And it's good for Suez Canal, but it's also it's always a good card. It's always a good card. Last selection, opera. Yeah, no, Richland doesn't bother with the opera. Doesn't bother with the first opera, at least. Doesn't bother with this breakthrough also. So interesting, actually. Maybe in my world, I might have taken that in hand, but I don't see a reason to go for this now. And then value this breakthrough very highly, because it is an extremely valuable card for pv4. And I'm also inclined to take these operas in hand if I can. It's not an especially important card in this game. Actually, there's no Marlene Dietrich, there's actually no single opera synergy, but it's still a good win condition card, cultural win condition card, which I like to have in hand. And if it comes in yeah, there's just a lot of situations where you can just build one opera and create the game state where you win, unless the other guy does something to hit you or outscale you, where you're just ahead by building that opera. But it's the first copy, so this breakthrough though, super important. There's another one, I didn't see it in my analysis now, so pv4 can probably not get both. Saru, also pv4 seeds, opens the strategic territory and Saru wins it. And now it's very interesting. Does he only pay one warrior? Because that would be huge. He does pay one warrior and a knight, and that is fair price, I would say. If he had only to pay this warrior here, that would be an extremely positive event for him. And this is a fair price. This is actually a high price, I would say, but it maybe enables him to fish for a war and still go for that war. Has only to build one knight now to have that heavy cavalry running back. He can still high roll on tactics, so this strategic territory is valuable quite a lot. It's valuable. It's worth quite a lot. It's very valuable. Yeah. Drawing the mobile artillery after if you build some knights is always a very, very good thing. So, is willing to build quite a lot. Okay, and pv4 goes for the Suez Canal, which can mean two things. It can mean, in my world, that this is an autonomous territory, or another territory which also all the food territories are probably very important for him, a vast territory inhabited in this game state. Or he's desperate. But I don't think he's desperate enough in this situation. I would say he has a territory in hand. Does he go for a strategy? He doesn't have to, actually, because Saru doesn't threaten anything now, for this turn at least, because he sent his units away. So he can start building this. I would be very surprised if he didn't take this breakthrough in hand. Maybe he can even, no, fixing corruption is not possible. He still goes for the strategy. He still wants to do that. Means he isn't weakest for the next event. And I mean, it's a card he more or less always wants to get out, I guess. Yeah, I mean, unless this common gets through, it's an extra draw here. I don't know, maybe he could chill and build a stage here and wait. And then react to what Saru does. Depending on the colony he has, he could, if Conmon is not taken away, he could do the Conmon before the strategy, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he will have thought about this thing in a little more detail here, but my gut feeling says there's maybe no need to do this now, and then you can just build a stage here. They are a little more flexible next turn. I mean, like this, he even is strongest, so maybe he has information about some strength events here, stringy strength events, so that is obviously an argument. There's a Pestilence, which is not such an event, and we see Michelangelo working here, saves the civil action and takes the Eiffel Tower. It's not considered to be a very great wonder in two-player, but it's also not bad. Culture wins games. The happy face is not that important for him, but it's still not bad. It alleviates the possible ravages of time, which is always the worst case for the Hanging Gardens. I think the Hanging Gardens is a decent wonder, which suffers a lot. It's already not that great, even compared to the others, and then it suffers from losing two happy faces from the ravages of time. It's the worst wonder to lose the ravages, possibly the worst. A wonder at least. And yeah, this happy face on the Eiffel Tower alleviates the possible ravages. Creates some culture income. See a breakthrough. Frugality doesn't take cannons, so gambles the second cannons. Interesting. Interesting. He gambles the second cannons. Might mean that he's content with this tactic. Might mean he has hussars or a classical army. But didn't take riflemen also, so maybe it's hussars, maybe he says this tactic is enough. This tactic is often enough, actually. Building this twice with 2 air forces is already a lot of strength for a 2-player game. And then you can also sometimes just build 3 times 3 air forces and you're just safe. And can even threaten something. So it's also an interesting game state where he forces pv4 maybe to have a tough decision whether he spends then a lot of civil actions for the cannons or not. So that is that. New deposits revealed, and pv4 is completely depleted almost of this blue bank, and now it's very curious obviously to see what territory he is colonizing, and it is the inhabited 2, maybe the best. He didn't really want to lose a blue cube to this vast, I think, and it gave him some activations here. I mean, maybe also the autonomous is just always the best, but this inhabited territory is definitely very good for him here. And we do see the Conmon going through to him. And if I'm not totally mistaken, if he didn't have this strategy developed, he could just go for it now. Yeah, I think that would be better. Doesn't get the rifleman like this, which hurts. Can hurt, at least. Eiffel Tower is finished. Saru didn't see it. Takes justice system, can just develop it. Selective breeding, can just develop it, upgrade it once. Indeed has the hussars. And leaves that Revaldir here. Didn't have time for that with that turn. Yeah. Is on 34 plus 10. Some of it comes from Michelangelo. I think 3 culture production by him. Four even. Missed that religion. Yeah. Creates a bit of a lead, but it's very open. I mean, I'm curious to see if pv4 is willing to go for this revolution, or maybe even with Robespierre. He really wants this government out. See a prosperity, which is yeah, okay. He gets 1 food, but he also only had 1 happy face and 1 blue cube. So if he had a lot of blue happy faces now, he would still only get 1 because he only had 1 blue cube. But Saru gets quite some food here. Can populate bunch. And what's the turn? It is the Robespierre revolution. That was also a bit calling out there to be done. Kremlin, and he lacks the civil action to finish it, sadly. So he can populate once and is stuck in the corruption of mega death loop. But the Kremlin will help. It's pretty good in this situation, I think. He does have some happiness issues, but will be very likely be able to fix those with team sport or organized religion. And then that's a rock dump he desperately needed still. And the extra civil action is also very welcome. So, yes, he still wants those scientific methods journalisms out, I think. Yeah, by now, I don't know. Okay, let's finish H2. but I think it's closer now than at the end of H1. Even though pv4 seems to have continuous problems here, but he also has some solutions maybe. We see a wealthy territory and pv4 wins it for 2 warriors and a card. And now I'm curious, did he even... yeah, with the iron you always get the 6 rocks because you get 3 blue cubes. And 3 blue cubes, super good. Yeah, apparently Saru didn't have any colonization cards, or I don't know, wasn't willing to win the wealthy territory. I think it's pretty good still for him. It's also a rock income with the Swiss cannon, and the 3 blue cubes are just super good. Saru takes team sports here. There is a Kubaton in the deck, so that's probably why team sports and not organized religion. Okay, never mind, I take everything back. That is why he picked that first, I would say. But he blocks pv4 on happiness solutions. The opera is also out, so that will be a struggle for pv4 actually. Builds knight, and we kind of see that Saru couldn't really leverage his strength push at all because he didn't have the strategy, and he had the strategy. This means he didn't have to invest in any unit tech yet and can now still get the cavalryman and then just copy the hussars. Yeah, I think that strategy was too important. Now all the time, if you build units, he draws less cards. Yeah, he couldn't leverage the investment here more or less at all. We don't see the former events. Yeah? Was there even a strength event? I don't remember it. I think there wasn't. Maybe there would still be one, but yeah. Like this, the investment into those knights, as of now, didn't pay off. And then somehow he only got the the Eiffel Tower down in H2 and some food income. And otherwise it almost looks like at the end of H1. Yeah. What happened in H1 here? I think the strategy maybe didn't take operas. I imagine he can just build an opera now or 2. Then he's running away with the culture income. And he has the rocks for that. Now I'm curious what the plan is. Does he get this journalism, or is it still too important for pv4? This printing press, as we see, was never developed. Was a little awkward, I think, to take it even. Yeah, pv4 does take cavalrymen and just goes for those and copies the tactic probably, and is even ahead now in strength. Does he still get this irrigation out, or does he say it doesn't matter? He does get it out and builds one. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the warrior there, I like it. Still draws 3 cards. Yeah, this is now mighty. This is mighty. This Kremlin on top of common strategy, code of laws, super mighty. Yeah, I think actually looking at this, H2 in a vacuum went definitely pv4's way, and in total I think it's super close now, and maybe pv4 is ahead here. Maybe pv4 is ahead here. So we will lose Michelangelo here and a civil action. Goes for Newton. Populates. Builds a lab. Doesn't bother with the journalism. Still think it would be good to go for this journalism here just. Takes efficient upgrade. And engineering genius 2. Autonomous territories revealed, which maybe means pv4 has drawn it after he has built the Suez, or he had it and still preferred to go for this inhabited. But it's interesting that's in the deck. Can't imagine Saru putting it in there. I think. pv4 wins it for the pair, but it's somehow brain dead worth it. And now, yeah, this is just so mighty in h3. This is, I think it's almost unwinnable now for Saru, unless I'm missing something. As of now, so as of this autonomous territory, I would give him like 90% win chance here at least. He doesn't suffer from having to build those two units. He has a good food income now. He also takes the food from the wonder, the colony from the autonomous, and can just rebuild it. It creates rock income and it gives this, so it's not such a high cost here. Just upgrades those foods. Yeah, those agricultures to irrigation is on 0+4 now, which means he gets one guy out per turn. And still just goes for the Harvard. I can understand. I don't like those late wonders, but he has infinite rocks, more or less, infinite civil actions, and he has no science, so I can very much understand this Harvard College. There's Empire State Building, Hollywood, and United Nations. No one has bothered to set up for Hollywood yet, and maybe the other wonders are not that high impact. Red Cross is always very high impact, in my opinion, if it's very far in the back. If it's at the very end, then it's this randomizer who gets the Red Cross, who can use two reserves and just build it. And that's why I also don't like that wonder. And if it's early on, it's almost unplayable. You can more or less, there are very few game states where you are set up to take and just build this Red Cross and not suffer from just spending an entire turn on that. So yeah, this early Red Cross is just ignorable. Curious if Saru still finds his way to keep this game even close. So in my intuition, pv4 won. But maybe I'm missing something and Saru finds a way to still keep the game interesting. That maybe is the way, yeah. International Red Cross. But my experience and intuition says that this is just not good. Maybe it's his best turn, actually, although I still look all the time at this journalism. Yeah, but he spends his entire turn now to not even finish it. Yeah, it's then 24. He gets 24. pv4 gets, if he decides to, 6. So it's an 18 plus 4, 22 culture wonder, which you spent an entire early h3 turn for. If you build a movies now, that's more than 24 culture, because it still works for 5 rounds or maybe 6 even, in good scenario. But you get my argument, yeah? I mean, he cannot build a movie here, but he could build journalism. And he's missing out on some population thanks to or due to having to dump the food into this wonder. I tend to avoid it, doing that early in h3. I think this wonder is only good if you get it late in h3, and then it's too good. But yeah, again, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe this is still the best turn he has. I mean, after all, he does have still a bit of a culture lead, but I would say it's completely neglectable. The second position is in such game states always, in my book, like 20 culture ahead. If it's equal, then he's like 10 or 20 culture ahead in those open games, because he has the option to just sneak in some very high impacts for the last turns. Okay, now there is this bug. I just press reload and hope that 14 is correct. Yeah. What did he give actually? 3 rocks. Yeah. Suffers from corruption even. pv4. What was this now? Arms industry. Okay. 2 rocks for Saru, 4 for pv4. Builds a stage of the Red Cross, which does make it's a 12 culture swing, so you always want to do that, I think. Just finishes Harvard, takes military build up, air forces, cannons, efficient upgrades. Just the whole might and power of all those civil actions, doing whatever he wants. Can't really go for multimedia because he doesn't have happy faces, but he can, as soon as movies drop, he can just build 2 movies. Saru goes for this Red Cross fundamentalism. Maybe hopes for some war outs still, but I don't see them, honestly. Goes for his fundamentalism, patriotism, builds knights. Doesn't even get those air forces. Second copy. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's already a bit desperate here and doesn't play the cleanest turns. I don't know what this does without the air forces, honestly. If I'm not missing anything. pv4 does go for multimedia. He can get disband a philosophy and put it into multimedia, and movies just didn't drop, and the science is still good, so goes for jobs also, but maybe you didn't read him correctly. He gives happy faces for computers, not multimedia. I'm certainly joking. He will know that this is the case, but he already produced some culture, and Robespierre doesn't, so he can spare the rock price for the 4 culture, and he can still get this. Computer will become a happiness solution like this, so understandable. Maybe there's also just not the best H3 leaders anyway, so this Steve Jobs is comes in handy here. Rare idea for 3. Refugees revealed. Saru is strongest here. Upgrades. Organized religion. Okay. Maybe still does want to try something militarily. Takes EG reserves. Didn't have any other options to do anything because he has no journalism in hand. Maybe he thinks his lead is actually enough and he just needs to defend. My gut feeling still says it's never enough here, and pv4 is ahead. I already see it coming. Sorry, just wins this game. I just got everything wrong here. I don't think so. p4 now does have to react a bit to it, which is not annoying action or rock-wise, but population-wise, because you would rather have some extra people in those multimedia. Maybe still goes for that. Goes for oil, actually. Yeah, now it's crazy. Now it's getting wild here. It's for impacts, maybe. But this oil, the only reason I see it doing anything is if impact of industries is in there. I mean, it will also still produce some rocks, but it's really not the bottleneck of the civilization. Politics of strength? So always huge in such games. Empire state building. And he can just build it. How much is it? And he waits. As of now. Maybe it's also deny, and pv4 would have won every single category after his turn if he wanted to. See a strategic territory revealed, and Saru pays 19 rocks for it, so here we maybe see the true reason for those knight push. being able to contest those. Multimedia, mechanized agriculture, also maybe that looks like a possible impact of balance now. All those production impacts. No movies, interestingly, or maybe it still takes them in hand. Yeah, he still takes them in hand, but didn't build them this turn. That will be his last turn then. And there's no wonder left, and he is behind. He's behind. He needs impacts. He needs to win some impacts. There's 3 impacts by Saru and only 1 impact by pv4. Maybe he had a very terrible draw here. Because his civilization wins all the impacts more or less. I can't find that many that are good for Saru, and maybe that's progress if he hits impacts. I mean, after winning a Politics of Strength, the balance shifts quite a lot in the question of the expected value of impact culture. Okay, somehow, I don't know, somehow we didn't see an early movies drop, I guess, or some way for pv4 to leverage his economy into a very good culture income. He has now an economy that can also compete in, if we continue the game, to h5 maybe, but that is not happening. The game is over soon, and I'm very curious if this is enough. How much does this do? It's only strength, yeah? It's only strength, so it was more of a deny. Maybe he can sneak in one other category that I don't see right now. Military theory, so yes, a huge progress. pv4 doesn't have a huge progress. That alone can be enough to stay ahead here. Oh, this game turned out to be so close. It was ups and downs. Saru, then pv4, now Saru again? It's very tense here. The tension is very high, and he does even go for the 7 culture empire state building. Couldn't find another way to dump his rocks. Yeah, I think impact of progress is a problem. And then if we found other impacts that are decent, like impact of wonders maybe, although that's not even... Are there any impacts that are good for this guy? Other than this? Other than this? No wonders is more or less neutral. I can hear strength. Impact of strength. Maybe he was so desperate that he had to play impact of strength, but pv4... Yeah, I mean, it is... He doesn't have the signs for air forces. 1 air force would be enough, but like this, he would have to build a pair, but he really doesn't want to build a pair. So maybe there's also an impact of strength here. Crazy. Saru found a way to maybe win this game. And his impact of progress is just insane. Okay. p4 couldn't find the time to get an h3 wonder, but now he can still get some technology. 1 technology only out. Impact of progress is revealed. Couldn't have improved it anyway. That is just plus 14. And that is quite a gap here. Oh, this will be so close. That's an epic season finale. Endowment of Arts still playable thanks to Harvard College. I mean, this is a monumental impact of balance, which is, if it's in there, no, it's rather impact of agriculture here, and maybe not balance. He would have improved his balance otherwise. I think he would like need both or all of those impacts here. But he has only seeded 2. It's 2-2. And p4 is 22 culture behind, but we have seen progress now. And I can imagine that Saru had to... Yeah, okay. I mean, if he had strength, and if he had the guts and the foresight to put that in and see, I'm just winning strength, and then I think he won. But let's see. What I wanted to start saying is that maybe Saru had to at some point put an impact in that is just strictly not good for him. Just to open up the politics of strength, for example, or something else. Okay, 20 to culture, it's not impossible. I have to press a play again. Okay, come on, guys. This is mocking me. I can't click this now. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't go to the last turn. Impact of happiness is 1616. It's agriculture is 1024. Now we have 8 culture difference. Variety, that could be one of those neutral ones from Saru. Does pv4 still have 1 impact in there, which wins him the game? There would be some. Population is 8, and this means it's a draw! I can't believe it! Oh no! What the hell? It's a draw! This turns everything... who wins now? Do they have a decider game? What happens now? For a brief moment I was now... no, of course, Saru was ahead. Saru wins. I'm stupid. pv4 had to win the game and then would win the tiebreaker. But Saru should have 1 more point than... He should be at 11 now. Yeah. Okay, then Saru wins. Oh my god. You cannot make that up. It's a draw. Oof. Yeah, somehow Saru clutched that one out big time. I think the politics of strength was super decisive, obviously, and winning the strategic territory. And yeah, maybe after all, it was the correct decision to build this early red cross. I would say my gut feeling says it's not that good, but maybe it was the best turn he had after all. He built this 7 culture, okay, more or less denial of the Empire State building, but also said, okay, I'm just building this for 7 culture, I have no better alternatives. And yeah, I also think pv4 didn't have the best impact draw here, because he's just winning every impact, honestly. You can name any impact in the game, and it gives pv4 culture, except impact of strength. He would win science, culture, impact of architecture would be, it's not that huge, but you could have improved it. Impact of balance would be crazy. It was an interesting impact here, oil build. That is, I mean, I don't want to be overconfident in my analysis. I just breezed along this game with you guys. But that looked a little off to me, going for this oil, if there's no impact of industry in there. And or balance. Yeah. So he only found population, which is +8, and agriculture, which he had to invest everything in. So you cannot really count it as 14 culture, because he could have also built a movie instead or something. It was just then the most efficient way to generate some culture in the last turn. Yeah. Saru, yeah. Congratulations to Saru for winning the season in style here with the finish, with the tie. Maybe I'm actually missing something, and there's a rule here that second player wins ties or something. I think it was like that in TT8 pulls, but I don't remember it here. I think a tie is just a tie, and you share the points, so each one gets one. Actually, let's look if I can set up for us looking at the results together real quick. If you bear with me, I will try to do that. I have to open the page, which I haven't done, the tournament page, and now I have to somehow set it up in OBS. And it's sometimes a little awkward. Wait. I need this. I think. Easy, right? Now we can take a look at the standings, and we see indeed Saru is on top with 11 points. And I managed to end second. Also cool. No matter what the result of the last game is here, Martin Pischer versus Weidenbaum, he can also go to 10 and secures the third place in the season. But I won my game against Martin Pischer, thus win that tiebreaker. Yeah, what a crazy finish. I'm glad I decided and I was urged to do this analysis blindly even. And very, very interesting game, obviously. And I think I have nothing more to say to this. I'm looking forward to next season. Thanks for all the players for playing. Congratulations to everyone. In the end, it was so close, as close as it can get. And that is the beauty of Through the Ages, I guess. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.